As the tumultuous decade of the 1960s drew to its twilight, an era defined by its seismic cultural upheavals and profound societal re-evaluations, the landscape of popular music was itself a cauldron of fervent innovation. Rock and roll, having shed its initial skin of straightforward teen entertainment, had burgeoned into a sophisticated medium for artistic expression, a conduit for social commentary, and a mirror reflecting the anxieties and aspirations of a generation. Within this charged atmosphere, particularly in the vibrant experimental hub of London, a sonic entity was coalescing, poised to unleash a work that would not merely contribute to the year's already impressive roster of musical achievements, but would fundamentally reconfigure the existing paradigms of rock music. In October 1969, this entity, King Crimson, released their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King. This was no mere record, it was a cataclysmic event, a fiercely articulated statement of intent that tore through the prevailing fabric of popular music, announcing with an astonishing blend of raw power and intricate sophistication the definitive arrival of progressive rock in its most ambitious and uncompromising form. The record transcended the notion of a simple collection of songs, offering itself as a meticulously crafted portal, an undeniable rite of passage into an auditory universe where the boundaries of musical ambition seemed to dissolve entirely. Its importance, far from diminishing with the passage of over half a century, continues to resonate with undiminished potency. It stands not merely as a revered historical artifact, but as a perennially flowing wellspring of inspiration and awe for musicians and listeners alike. To immerse oneself in its labyrinthine structures and rich emotional tapestry is to discover the very foundations upon which a significant portion of what we now consider artistically audacious and adventurous in rock music was painstakingly constructed. Even today, its innate power to shock, to enchant, and to provoke profound contemplation remains strikingly intact, compelling us to ponder the almost preternatural foresight and creative audacity that allowed its creators to conceive and execute something so radically transformative at such a relatively nascent stage in rock's evolution. The prevailing soundscape of 1969, while dynamic, was largely characterized by the muscularity of British blues rock, the burgeoning force of hard rock, the lysergic explorations of Californian psychedelia, and the lingering, earnest reverberations of message-driven folk music. Rock had certainly begun to flirt with extended compositional forms and overarching thematic concepts, as evidenced in the pioneering works of the Beatles, particularly Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and Abbey Road, the orchestral pop of the moody blues with Days of Future Past, or the classically tinged rock of Procol Harum, their iconic A Whiter Shade of Pale and self-titled debut. However, In the Court of the Crimson King propelled this nascent experimentalism to an entirely unprecedented echelon of structural complexity, visceral intensity, and conceptual cohesion. It wasn't just about longer songs or adding a flute. It was about a fundamental rethinking of what a rock band could sound like and what a rock album could be. The genesis of this groundbreaking sound lay in the unique, if tragically short-lived synergy of the original King Crimson lineup. Robert Fripp, a guitarist of singular vision and iconoclastic technique, eschewed blues rock cliches for angular, often dissonant lines and a sophisticated harmonic sensibility. Greg Lake, possessed of a commanding and uniquely pure vocal timbre, also provided a melodic and robust bass foundation that was far more than mere root note accompaniment. Ian MacDonald was the band's multi-instrumental wizard. His contributions on reeds, saxophone, flute, clarinet, and, most crucially, the mellotron, a tape replay keyboard that could simulate orchestral strings, choirs, and flutes, were utterly integral to the album's distinctive sonic identity. Michael Giles, a drummer of extraordinary technical facility and improvisational flair, brought a jazz-honed sophistication and dynamic range that propelled the music with both power and subtlety. And then there was Peter Sinfield, the lyricist and wordsmith, who also operated the band's innovative light show. Sinfield was, in essence, a non-performing fifth member, yet his evocative, often darkly poetic lyrics and his contribution to the band's overall aesthetic and conceptual framework were absolutely crucial to defining King Crimson's unique identity. This assembly of fiercely individual talents whose collective chemistry proved too volatile to endure for long, nonetheless managed to conjure a work of monumental and lasting impact, a perfect storm of creative confluence. The album did not merely dabble or flirt with the forms and textures of European classical music or the improvisational freedom of jazz. It absorbed them, recontextualized them, and fused them organically and indivisibly with the raw energy of rock. The resultant amalgam was a sound that was simultaneously visceral and intellectual, capable of moments of brutal, almost primal force, yet also possessed of an ethereal, haunting beauty. This duality was immediately and powerfully communicated by the album's iconic cover art. Barry Godber's haunting painting of the schizoid man, his face a rictus of terror, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and bewildered agony, mouth agape in a silent scream. This image, one of the most instantly recognizable and unsettling in the entire history of rock music, served as a stark, uncompromising visual prelude to the intense and often disquieting sonic journey that awaited the listener within. It was a visual manifesto, perfectly encapsulating the album's themes of modern alienation, psychic fragmentation, and the anxieties of a rapidly changing world. Godber, a young computer programmer and friend of Sinfield, tragically died of a heart attack shortly after the album's release, adding another layer of poignancy to his unforgettable creation. The painting itself, now owned by Robert Fripp, remains a potent symbol of the album's enduring power. A granular musical deconstruction of In the Court of the Crimson King unveils an architecture of sound that was nothing short of revolutionary for its time, and in many ways remains so. The opening track, 21st Century Schizoid Man, serves as an immediate and brutal sonic assault, a declaration of the band's iconoclastic intentions. It erupts with Fripp's razor-sharp, heavily distorted, and chromatically complex guitar riff, a far cry from the blues-based pentatonic scales that dominated much of contemporary rock. Giles's drumming is a maelstrom of controlled chaos, frenetic, intricate, and astonishingly precise, navigating complex time signatures and dynamic shifts with apparent ease. Lake's bass locks in with Giles, providing a powerful, pulsating undercurrent, while his vocals, processed through a fuzzbox or similar distortion, deliver Sinfield's chillingly prescient lyrics, a diatribe against the paranoia of the Cold War era, political hypocrisy, politicians' funeral pyre, and the pervasive sense of alienation in modern technological society, innocence raped with napalm fire. The song's structure is unconventional, veering from the aggressive vocal sections to an explosive instrumental middle passage titled Mirrors. This section is a tour de force of wild, free jazz-influenced improvisation, featuring a searing saxophone solo from Ian MacDonald that duels fiercely with Fripp's equally unhinged guitar work. It's a moment of untamed energy, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable or even comprehensible within a rock song. 21st Century Schizoid Man, by itself, would have been sufficient to secure the album's historical importance. It functioned as a bold manifesto, a categorical and unapologetic severing of ties with rock's more conventional, blues-rooted traditions. Its influence can be heard in countless heavy metal and progressive metal acts that followed, who were drawn to its aggression, technicality, and dark subject matter. In a breathtaking display of the band's dynamic range and mastery of mood, I Talk to the Wind emerges directly from the abrasive fury of schizoid man like an oasis of melancholic serenity. The contrast could not be more violent, nor more effective. Here, Ian MacDonald's ethereal, classically inflected flute playing takes center stage, weaving a delicate, wistful melody that floats above a gentle, almost pastoral arrangement. Greg Lake's vocals, now clean and imbued with a lyrical purity, deliver Sinfield's introspective, somewhat enigmatic verses, "I've been here and I've been there and I've been in between," with a remarkable tenderness and vulnerability. The drumming from Michael Giles is subtle and supportive, employing brushes and a lighter touch that perfectly complements the song's contemplative atmosphere. The mellotron, used with exquisite restraint, adds subtle layers of simulated strings and flutes, expanding the sonic space and enhancing the track's dreamlike, introspective quality. I Talk to the Wind is a masterful demonstration of the band's vast dynamic and emotional palette, proving that their ambition was not confined to mere aggression or technical complexity, but also extended to the nuanced exploration of delicate textures, contemplative atmospheres, and understated beauty. It showcased a different kind of progressiveness, one rooted in subtlety and grace. The song had origins in Giles and Fripp, the precursor band, but was significantly reimagined by the King Crimson lineup, particularly with MacDonald's arrangements. The emotional core, and perhaps the most widely celebrated centerpiece of the album, resides in Epitaph. This is a ballada of truly majestic and apocalyptic proportions, a solemn pronouncement on the human condition. It is here that the mellotron, played by Ian MacDonald, is unleashed in its full symphonic glory, creating a colossal, awe-inspiring wall of sound that evokes funereal choirs and sweeping string orchestras. This grand, almost Wagnerian backdrop provides the perfect setting for Greg Lake's impassioned and mournful vocal delivery as he intones Peter Sinfield's profoundly bleak and prophetic lyrics. "Confusion will be my epitaph as I crawl a cracked and broken path. If we make it, we can all sit back and laugh, but I fear tomorrow I'll be crying." The lyrics, dense with somber imagery of strife, mortality, and the seemingly inevitable self-destruction of humanity. Knowledge is a deadly friend. If no one sets the rules, the fate of all mankind, I see, is in the hands of fools. Find their ideal vehicle in the song's stately, elegiac melody and Lake's intensely committed performance. The song builds through a series of dramatic crescendos, with Michael Giles' drumming providing a powerful, almost martial rhythm that underscores the gravity and inexorability of the theme. Epitaph was far more than just a song. It was a miniature symphony, a profound and moving philosophical statement that transcended the typical pop song format. It utilized the instrumentation and sonic palette of rock music to evoke the emotional depth, solemnity, and grandeur typically associated with romantic classical music. It remains to this day one of the most pungent, powerful, and emotionally resonant songs ever written within the rock idiom, a quintessential example of the lyrical and musical potential that progressive rock would go on to explore exhaustively. Its profound influence can be clearly discerned in countless subsequent bands who sought to imbue their compositions with a similar sense of existential weight, philosophical depth, and orchestral grandiosity, firmly establishing the mellotron as a defining, almost archetypal instrument of the progressive rock sound. The album's most challenging and arguably most controversial track, Moonchild, represents King Crimson's most radical plunge into the abyss of avant-garde experimentation. The piece is formally divided into two distinct sections: the relatively brief The Dream and the extended, largely improvisational The Illusion. The Dream retains a fragile, ethereal, melodic quality, a whispered, dreamlike reverie carried by delicate instrumentation. gentle guitar arpeggios from Fripp, subtle cymbal work from Giles, and Lake's hushed vocals delivering Sinfield's whimsical fairy tale-like lyrics. She's a moonchild, gathering the flowers in a garden, lovely moonchild, drifting on the by. Echoes of the hours. It's in the much longer The Illusion section, however, that King Crimson truly casts off conventional song structures and launches into an extended passage of free-form, minimalist improvisation. This section features a sparse, almost abstract dialogue between the instruments, with Fripp's guitar weaving quiet, exploratory lines, Giles offering subtle percussive textures, and occasional interjections from MacDonald. For many listeners at the time, and indeed, for some even today, this extended, seemingly meandering passage sounded like a deliberate challenge to the very notion of a structured song, an exercise in self-indulgence, or simply a confusing void. Yet, paradoxically, this often cited point of contention within the album is also one of the keys to understanding the band's profound audacity. Their unwavering courage to subvert listener expectations, to explore silence, space, and even moments of near cacophony as valid and expressive musical elements. The Illusion paved the way for even more daring avant-garde incursions that progressive rock, and indeed other experimental genres, would undertake in the ensuing years. Herein lies a crucial point of tension and artistic risk. The band consciously risked alienating a segment of its potential audience in the pursuit of pure, unadulterated artistic exploration, rigorously testing the limits of the listener's patience and comprehension. This willingness to prioritize artistic integrity and experimentation over commercial accessibility would become a defining characteristic of Robert Fripp's artistic philosophy throughout his long and varied career, with subsequent iterations of King Crimson. This moment of apparent deconstruction, of music that seems to delicately disintegrate and then subtly reform in unexpected ways, is fundamental to understanding the indomitable, restless, and uncompromising spirit of King Crimson. Finally, the album draws to a majestic and ceremonial close with its title track, The Court of the Crimson King. This epic piece, subtitled Including the Return of the Fire Witch and the Dance of the Puppets, serves as a grand summation, musically and thematically. It reclaims and expands upon the orchestral grandeur first introduced in Epitaph, but perhaps with a slightly different, more resigned or ritualistic emotional hue. Once again, Ian MacDonald's mellotron plays a central and defining role, its massed choir and string sounds conjuring an atmosphere of ancient, imposing majesty. Michael Giles's drumming establishes a hypnotic, almost tribal rhythm that drives the piece forward with a sense of solemn procession. Peter Sinfield's lyrics evoke a rich, darkly fantastical world, populated by archetypal, almost tarot-like characters. The rusted chains of prison moons are shattered by the sun. I walk a road, horizons change, the tournament's begun. Figures like the Yellow Jester, the Black Queen, and the Fire Witch populate a decadent, mysterious, and perhaps doomed kingdom presided over by the enigmatic Crimson King himself. The song unfolds in distinct sections, each with its own character, including a beautifully melancholic flute solo from MacDonald and powerful instrumental passages that reiterate the band's cohesive vision and formidable instrumental prowess. The track features a recurring, memorable mellotron-driven chorus that acts as a powerful, thematic anchor. The song's most striking feature, however, is its abrupt, unexpected ending. Just as the main theme seems to be building towards a final conclusive statement, it is suddenly cut off mid-phrase, as if the stylus has been violently ripped from the record groove. followed by a brief, unsettling snippet of a calliope-like sound. This jarring cessation of sound leaves the listener in a state of suspension, a feeling that the cycle is incomplete, perhaps fated, to repeat endlessly. A premonition, possibly, of the band's own inherently mutable, unstable, and perpetually evolving nature. This unique and daring conclusion, which seems to carry within it both the promise of future explorations and the inherent uncertainty of what lies beyond, creates a palpable sense of unresolved tension and anticipation. What could possibly follow such a definitive and monumental artistic statement? How could any band, even King Crimson themselves, hope to surpass or even equal such a towering achievement? This pervasive sense of a chapter definitively closing, yet simultaneously leaving numerous doors tantalizingly ajar to the unknown, is an integral part of the album's enduring enigma and its profound, lasting fascination. The initial critical reception afforded to In the Court of the Crimson King was, for the most part, one of profound astonishment, deep admiration, and even a degree of bewildered awe. Prominent and influential, figures within the music world were quick to recognize its groundbreaking significance. Pete Townshend of The Who, himself a notable innovator, famously declared the album to be an uncanny masterpiece. Other critics lauded its ambition, its technical virtuosity, and its sheer originality, even if some struggled to fully categorize or comprehend its multifaceted nature. Commercially, despite its overtly challenging and unconventional musical content, a far cry from the radio-friendly singles that typically dominated the charts, the album achieved remarkable success. It climbed to number 5 on the UK album charts and reached the top 30 in the United States, a truly noteworthy accomplishment for a debut album by a new band, offering such a radical and uncompromising musical vision. This unexpected commercial viability was crucial, as it unequivocally demonstrated to record labels and the wider music industry that a substantial and eager audience existed for music that was more complex, artistically ambitious, and intellectually stimulating. It effectively opened the floodgates, creating a more receptive environment for other progressive rock bands such as Yes, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Gentle Giant, and Van de Graaff Generator to emerge and flourish in the early 1970s. The decisive and far-reaching importance of In the Court of the Crimson King therefore resides not only in its intrinsic, undeniable musical excellence and artistic integrity, but also in its pivotal role as a catalyst and a foundational text for an entire musical movement. It effectively established a new paradigm for what rock music could aspire to be. It legitimized and popularized the use of complex, often classically inspired song structures, sophisticated harmonic language, diverse and unconventional instrumentation, with the mellotron in particular becoming a signature sound of the genre, deeply philosophical and poetically rich lyrical concepts, and an approach to live performance that often bordered on the theatrical and the intensely serious. King Crimson, with this singular epical album, essentially provided the architectural blueprint and the artistic license for much of the progressive rock that would follow in its wake. Its influence was not confined to its immediate contemporaries. It has continued to ripple outwards through successive generations of musicians across a diverse spectrum of genres, from various subgenres of progressive metal, Dream Theater, Tool, Opeth, and art rock to post-rock, and even some strains of alternative and avant-garde music. Bands and artists have drawn inspiration not just from its sound, but from its fearless spirit of innovation. The influence wielded by In the Court of the Crimson King transcends mere stylistic imitation or superficial quotation. It is, more profoundly, a conceptual influence. a powerful, enduring permission granted to artists to dare, to experiment, to push boundaries, and to defy expectations. The album irrefutably demonstrated that rock music could aspire to the intellectual depth and artistic sophistication of high art, without sacrificing its inherent visceral power and emotional immediacy. It proved that bold experimentation was not the enemy of profound emotion, and that intricate complexity could coexist harmoniously with passages of breathtaking melodic beauty and poignant lyrical insight. The intense internal creative tensions and personality clashes that would, with tragic swiftness, lead to the dissolution of this original, iconic lineup shortly after the album's supporting tour only served to add another layer of myth and mystique to its already legendary story. It was as if such an extraordinary confluence of individual talents and such a singular, focused artistic vision was almost too potent, too incandescent to endure for an extended period. Yet, the potent seed planted by this fleeting collective germinated and has since fruitified with astonishing abundance. Each of the album's 5 tracks, with its own distinct personality, its unique sonic signature, and its integral contribution to the cohesive and immersive whole, serves as a microcosm of the vast, untapped potentialities that the nascent progressive rock movement would go on to explore throughout the 1970s and beyond. The raw, unbridled ferocity and technical audacity of 21st century schizoid man, the delicate melancholic beauty and pastoral grace of I Talk to the Wind, the solemn apocalyptic grandeur and profound emotional weight of Epitaph, the challenging abstract experimentalism and sonic deconstruction of Moonchild, and the majestic ceremonial sweep and enigmatic narrative of the title track. Together, these elements form a rich, multifaceted mosaic of musical possibilities that continues to inspire musicians and to captivate and challenge listeners in equal measure. In the Court of the Crimson King is an album that demands and indeed rewards focused, attentive listening. It is a work that unfailingly reveals new layers of detail, new sonic nuances, and new emotional resonances with each repeated encounter. It remains an unwavering beacon, an incontestable and indispensable point of reference within the vast, sprawling, and ever-evolving cartography of rock music. Its profound significance has not diminished with the relentless passage of time. On the contrary, its stature has only grown, its radicalism becoming ever more apparent as later musical trends have come and gone, solidifying its position as one of the undisputed foundational pillars of 20th century popular music. Therefore, to revisit In the Court of the Crimson King in the contemporary era is not merely an exercise in nostalgic indulgence or a simple historical curiosity. It is rather a dynamic act of rediscovery, a re-engagement with a pivotal moment in musical history when rock music dared to dream on an epic scale, courageously challenging its own self-imposed limitations and, in the process, comprehensively redefining its expressive possibilities. The sheer audacity contained within its grooves, the haunting, somber beauty of its melodies, the intellectual depth of its lyrical reflections, and the sheer visionary power of its overall conception continue to resonate with an undiminished and truly impressive force. It stands as irrefutable proof that genuine works of art, those born from true vision and uncompromising integrity, are indeed timeless. Its decisive importance is not merely historical, confined to the annals of musicology. It is vital, urgent, and perpetually relevant, for it constantly reminds us of the transformative, boundary-shattering power that music can wield when it bravely refuses to tread well-worn, easy paths and instead launches itself with unwavering conviction and fearless creativity into uncharted, unknown territories. The echoes of the Crimson King's Court still reverberate, challenging new generations to listen, to question, and to create with similar boldness.